I did escape corporate hell, right? And I built my own business and we didn't exactly use franchises, but we use licensees for two different companies. And basically what I do now is really what I should have been doing my whole life. I work with business owners and I help them to be a business owner. The math doesn't lie. The problem is a lot of people think math is hard. And I get it. It's an emotional thing, but for me, it's not that big a deal. I happen to love the numbers and it's easy for me. Budgets are like diets. Everybody hates them. Let's talk about setting a
Right,
target and measuring how we are against the target
right.
and then creating a system for cash flow management.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast, where you can escape the corporate trap through franchise ownership. Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the franchise guide.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide. We have a very exciting episode today. We have my good friend, Rocky Lalvani from Profit Comes First. Rocky, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me back, Giuseppe.
Yeah,
Excited for our combo.
I'm excited. I think this is our maybe the fourth appearance on the show. I was going back and I'm like, we have some awesome conversations. So like let's keep it to an annual thing. We have some great conversations. So hopefully you're cool with that. Give the audience a little bit of background of who Rocky is and what Rocky does.
So I did escape corporate hell, right? And I built my own business and we didn't exactly use franchises, but we use licensees for two different companies. And basically what I do now is really what I should have been doing my whole life. I work with business owners and I help them to be a business owner. What I mean by that is we get them out of working harder and making less to making more money and working less and enjoying their business and their life. They started a business for freedom and money. Well, then your business better provide freedom and money. And franchises are a great way to put a system in place where you don't have to go through all the hard knocks of screwing up first and figuring it out.
Right. Yeah, and I always say that not every franchise is built the same. The service offering, the support is not always the same. So that's a big part of the due diligence. But so let's talk about that with systems because a lot of people, as you mentioned, I did a show on the 5 freedoms from Dan Sullivan that you can experience from owning a business. Time and financial are the top two mentioned, maybe the top go to. So we'll focus on those two. So obviously, you start a business, time freedom. I know for myself wasn't there. Right, I was working my butt off to get this business up and running. So talk to us a little bit about how do you help people work on versus in the business?
So, working on versus in the business really is accomplished by A, having thinking time, right?
Mm,
So, you've got to think about the business, not be the doer in the business. We've got a system in place of 15 different levers. So every business has different levers and different businesses it works differently. So think of a lever, one of your levers might be marketing, right? One of the levers is hiring employees and spending. One of the levers is your pricing. One of the levers might be repetitive customers.
mm,
We sit down and we look at the entire business. We figure out the different levers that make sense for that business. And then we just start playing with it to say, hey, if I change this lever, what's the expected outcome? And by doing that, we can look and see which lever at this moment is going to give you the greatest reward for the least effort,
mm.
right? If we go look at the lever and we make a change to it and go, wow, doing that would take a lot of work and the outcome is not that much different, we're not going to focus there. So we really help the business owner focus on what do I need to do in the next 30 days to make a difference in the business and to my bottom line. We also create dashboards for them so they know what's going on in the business. So you're Jersey, right? So
Yep.
you probably all Giants or Jets fans. Doesn't matter where you are in the country, right? But imagine going to the Super Bowl, right? And here you are, day of the game, and you're going to watch the game. And you look down at the field and there's no lines on the field. How the hell do you know where you are?
Right.
They turn the clock off. They tell the referee to go home. We don't need him anymore, right? You're not important. How are you going to know how that game is going, what the score is, and whether or not you're winning or losing? You're not. And the reality is, nobody's going to watch that game.
Right.
And yet, so many business owners do that in their business. They don't have a scoreboard. They don't know what quarter of the year they're in necessarily or how they're doing against their goals, or they don't their scoreboard's so muddled, they don't even know what to do about it. They don't have a playbook to say,
Right.
okay, it's 4th and 1 and we're here. What should I do? Oh, here's a playbook. This is what we do on 4th and 1. And that's what franchises provide is that playbook. But what I find with franchises is they go, here's a dashboard that don't tell you how to really what play belongs to that. They give you the basics, but they really don't show you how to work the financial levers, and that's the problem. And that's the problem that we solve. So, work less, make more. That's my key.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you talk to people and, when you talk about financials, that's something that could be, you can measure that, right? It's like, all right, doing well, I increase sales by 20%, but yeah, or even income by 20%. But if you're working 50% more hours, there's an issue there. And it's getting those systems. So basically this is a complement to the franchise. So franchisees would be able to utilize your services and kind of in order to help them out and balance these freedoms that, the time and financial, who would be a typical so is this, you'd be able to help someone and maybe you can give us some examples, but someone that's just starting out with the franchise or maybe someone that's a little bit more established?
Well, we have a mutual connection, right? He's starting a franchise, right? That he got through you.
Right,
And we had a chat and he said, well, here are my guesses of what's going to happen.
right,
And he's like, "Let me get everything up and running, and then I need you to tell me, are my guesses right or wrong? Are we spending money appropriately? Are we able to achieve these types of goals?" When you start a new business, if you're not buying an existing one, you gotta go out and get sales.
right.
And too often, we spend a lot of money on marketing. It's the one area that I see most franchise owners spend a ton of money, but if you don't measure your marketing, you don't know what works and what doesn't. And we're constantly talking about marketing, right?
Yeah.
Because we each have to sell, right? So
Right.
we get this.
Yep.
And I know you spent a lot of money on marketing and some of it has worked and some of it hasn't.
Mhm.
But you got to measure that and you have to know how that lever works. And when you can create that well, and hopefully the franchisor gives you a good marketing system and then it's you figuring out in my market, which of these systems works best. Is it Facebook? Is it this? Is it that? How do I use that appropriately? Plus, all those things are constantly changing.
Right.
So
Right.
we were just talking about podcasts and downloads and systems keep changing. Google changes its algorithm. You got to learn to constantly be on top of it, or you're doing what you did last year and the world changed and you got left behind.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. You're constantly measuring. I always tell people, as a business owner, you have your KPIs and lead flow, or closing rates. You start to measure all that, and it's like, okay, my close rate is down 50%. Well, is it the quality of lead? Should I be changing my marketing? Is it my process? The design process need to be changed, and you're doing that with your staff. When I had my other building service business and close ratios were either up or down, we would always measure to see what changed. Should we review the marketing or does the salesperson maybe need some retraining? So there's a lot there and we talk
And
about it a lot.
yeah, and that's a key. Like, let's say you got 3 salespeople and your numbers are down. Well, if you look at them and 2 of them have 70% close ratios and one has a 30, now you know, "Oh, there's the problem. Now we can fix it." But if you don't know that, the one thing salespeople are good at is selling the owner, right, on how good they are.
Right. You got to be
But
right.
if you don't have the results and the numbers, how do you judge appropriately without the emotion? The math doesn't lie. The problem is a lot of people think math is hard. And I get it. It's an emotional thing, but for me, it's not that big a deal. I happen to love the numbers and it's easy for me. So it works out well.
Yeah, one thing you've helped me with, and this was a game changer, just, it's budgeting and ROI. So with budgeting, I never had a systematic way to kind of budget. And with profit first, we talked about, well, you should put aside, every dollar that comes in, 20% or whatever the number is goes to marketing, paying yourself first. And I never in my entire career had a system. It was basically, in my last business, if there was money in the account, but that's how I paid myself because we were always charging and then getting paid hopefully within 15 days. So and paying our subcontractors after the fact, but it was based off of cash flow, which was actually the wrong way of doing things because we didn't have at the time a monthly P&L. So that was super helpful. And then ROI, it's like, okay, this is my 20%, and that 20% is will make up a number, 50,000 bucks. Well, okay, of that 50,000, what is the ROI? Should I be 3, 4, 5xing that type of, those numbers in order for that to be sustainable? And that was never taught to me as a franchisee. Not a knock against a franchisor. It's just not. They always just said, this is kind of the average spend per month, not percentage, but the dollar amount. So that was super helpful. Can you elaborate a little bit? Any recommendations, along those lines?
So here's the thing, budgets are like diets, everybody hates them. Let's talk about setting a
Right.
target and measuring how we are against the target,
Right.
and then creating a system for cash flow management. That's what you're talking about. When I started this franchise, I'm supposed to have a 15% profit margin. Well, okay, every time a dollar comes in, let's put 15% aside. That's your profit margin. If you can't run the business on 85%, why not? Where are you
Right.
overspending and where are you wasting money in the business? I mean, the reality is running a business is just like people. When you were in your 20s, maybe you got a job paying 30, 40, 50 grand. Today, if you're in your 40s or 50s, you're making six figures and it seems like there's less money. It's because of lifestyle creep.
Right.
Well, people own businesses. And so those same financial things that people experience in their personal,
Mhm.
business owners experience in their business. And we get business lifestyle creep, right? Oh, we need to do this. And oh, we need to do
Right.
that. And then the other part of that is employees don't understand finances. So if you haven't taught your employees to be financially savvy, well, they're just going to waste your money because that's what they've been trained to do. They don't think about, hey, every time I waste something or do something wrong or let that slide, it's money out the door.
Yeah.
And so you got to change
That's
the
a good
way you
point.
focus.
That's a great point, and part of that is on the business owner as well. Something I learned years ago, my last business is we would talk about profitability, but we never showed the employees. So we would have quarterly meetings to say, because, they sales were up, they saw business was going well, and they expected bonuses and things like that, which we always tried our very best in order to take care of everyone. But I said, well, just because sales is up doesn't mean profitability is up. So we would talk about, okay, sales are up, but we're actually making less money because of X, Y, and Z. So I think having, being transparent with the staff, and you don't have to give them access to your QuickBooks, but I think letting them know this is kind of where we stand on a quarterly basis. We are making more money, but with that being said, we need to make cuts here, and there. My general manager, I even gave him some phantom equity. Every quarter, he would get a distribution of the profits. So he was cognizant. He was aware of the spend. Do we really need another employee? Do we really need extra marketing, or should he go out every Friday and network at the Chamber of Commerce events and things like that? So I think part of it, to your point, is yes, they're not aware, but we also are not empowering them to be aware, right, with the data, with the information. So that was a big change, and I think people realize, like, wow, we're losing money and sales are up. What changes? How do we? We're a team. How do we make the changes together?
And I'm a big fan of rewarding employees who can help you lower
Mm,
operational costs or efficiency.
right.
So if an employee comes up with an idea that saves the business owner $10,000, give them a grand,
Yeah.
give them 2 grand,
Mhm.
right? Create the atmosphere of everybody going, hey, how do we make more money? Because at the end of the day, a purpose of the business is really simple, to make more money. And we add in while working less. because I don't want
I
people to kill themselves. You didn't start this business to kill yourself. You shouldn't. There are ways to
mhm,
do this, and you've already got a system with the franchise of how to deliver your operation. Now you just need a system on the financial side and how to really maximize and spend time thinking about the business instead of being stuck in the business. And
right.
if you're employees now, just look around the room wherever you're working and ask yourself, is everyone in here making the company more profitable, or are there a bunch of people here who are just taking up space? Right? And when you own a business, you're gonna have the same problem. You gotta ask yourself, is this person taking
Yeah,
up space? Where is the return on what they're supposed to do? How do I improve it? Like right now, you see with fast food, right? They're getting rid of people galore and they're putting in ordering screens and
yeah,
apps and ways to cut employee costs. And I'm not against people and workers, but you've got to do it right. That's why I love Costco versus like Sam's Club. Costco pays its employees a lot more than Sam's Club does. But when you go there, you get a very different experience. And so you got to think through that. How am I going to build my culture, my values?
mhm,
How am I going to run this business to be the type of place that people love to come to and do business with versus ones that friction to do business with you. And I don't think business owners realize how much friction they put in place to do business with them. The easier it is, the easier it is. Look at Amazon, one click, buy now.
yeah. It's simple. The Amazon is the perfect model, right? I mean, you have everything. I follow Marcus Sheridan from They Ask You Answer, and he said
Mhm.
Amazon. You go there, you get reviews, so you can do your research. It's easy. It's one click. Your data saved. If you want to look at competitors and other, I'm looking at a wireless mic, for example. I purchased two mics to bring to our conference next week, and they gave comparisons, and you can test them out. They're easy to return. Go to Amazon and then go to your website. And I jokingly say, pretend like you're a customer. I go to your website. Do I know what the heck you even do? And that's sometimes a mystery. What do you do? And give us an idea on pricing. If you're $50,000 minimum to meet, and that's the cost, maybe you're giving some data, but that's going to rule people out and just say, well, I don't have that type of funds. Maybe I need to go a different route. But just being open and transparent will help. Will it increase or decrease lead flow? It could be both, but that the quality of lead at the end of the day should increase. So absolutely shop yourself. Just see like, maybe have someone not biased, a friend kind of maybe, search the site and give you some advice as to where, areas of improvement.
So, so true.
What else? What other advice did you have? So a lot of the audience listening in is our corporate execs looking to make that first move to entrepreneurship. And yet, what other advice do you have for them? And many of them have never owned a business before.
Yeah, and I think, this is the problem. People who don't own a business don't realize how much is involved and how difficult it can be to build everything yourself. So, like, I partnered with Profit First. Everything that's in that Profit First book is the way I built my wealth. I understood it fully. And then I'm like, well, if I understand this fully, what do I need them for? And then I realized, well, then I have to write my own book.
Right.
I have to market it. I have to create the templates and the different things that I'm going to use for my delivery. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't want to do any of that,
Right.
right? By partnering, which is what a franchise is, they provided me all the
Mm,
templates. Profit First, that name of Profit First has opened so many doors for me. Like, think about it. When you're driving down the street and you see McDonald's or, you know, JoJo's Burger
mm,
Bar, where do you go?
right.
Right? Depending on where you are, the branding and all of that stuff, that might not be in your wheelhouse and it might not be the parts of the business you love.
Right.
Yes, you can go create it yourself, but it takes a lot of work and effort. And so this is the shortcut to get through all of that. And I think that's the big part. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Until you do it, you really don't get it. And this is an easy way to kind of get it without having to kill yourself trying to learn it all and, figure out the marketing and the delivery and the production and the sourcing and the design and the layout and creating the user manuals for every
It's a lot. Yeah.
employee. It's a lot of work
It's
there.
overwhelming. It's
It's
overwhelming.
overwhelming. Yeah. And
So
that like the people who are my clients who don't have franchises, we spend half our time talking about you need a system and a process. And they're like, "I don't have time to build one." I'm like, "Yeah, well,
you
hello.
need to make
You
time. Yeah.
you need to
That's
make time."
priority. Or it's gonna
Yeah.
be this constant struggle. Who should be contacting you and where can they, get additional information and reach out if they're interested in learning more?
So, I think any business owner who is allergic to the financials or wants to outsource the financials because they're like, "Look, this is not my wheelhouse. I wanna go focus on these parts of the business. I need somebody helping me to understand the financials, tell me what to do so I can go do it and keep track of everything." So, and it doesn't matter how big or small you are. We have a program for startups and for small
Mhm.
companies that's more of a do it yourself. And then once you get to a decent level or you want to hand it off to somebody to help you with, then we help you there. The website is profitcomesfirst.com. You can find me there. I do have podcasts where we share a lot of what we do with our clients and also about life. So Profit Answer Man and Richer Soul is where we do all of that kind of stuff.
Awesome. We're gonna put all that in the show notes. Rocky, this was awesome. I always like catching up. I always learn a lot, and looking forward to having you again. I think we're gonna make this a minimum, an annual thing. So maybe we should just record our general conversation. I think people would get a lot out of that. Just our conversation prior to this about marketing, and sometimes you just need the other person to say, "Well, what's worked in the past? X. Well, why aren't you doing that anymore? I don't know."
And that's the thing, we forget, and that's what the franchise gives you, the system
Right.
that you constantly go back to the basics.
Right.
It's really about doing the basics, right? The football team goes just to training every year, right? How often do you do that?
Good point. Rocky, it was a pleasure. We hope to talk to you very soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.